Hi, I'm Chris.
And I'm Matt.
Welcome to Roleplay Chat.
We're two game masters who can't stop talking about role-playing games.
Today we are behind the GM screen. We are talking about our Blood Betrayal Campaign diary, behind the scene a little bit. We're talking about the campaign diary entry 5, which is called A Storm of Ratmen.
If you want to hear the narrative for that, I'm going to link it up here. You can click there and see the story of our heroes. But here we're going to have some spoilers, and we're going to go behind the GM screen, like Chris said, to pick Chris's brain as the game master and mine as a player.
Great. So there's multiple things that happened in this episode, but the one thing I was, I guess, the most more worried about, because it was really linked to a player, and it's happened that it was you. It was the reveal of Diedrich being a wizard, a blue wizard.
Yeah, I really liked it, man. I thought it was cool. I came in there all charged up with lightning bolts, got to zap 3 Ratmen, and basically killed them on the spot. It really, I thought, had a really cool impact. Got the rest of the players, like, I think it took them relatively by surprise.
Yeah, I really wonder about that, because I expected a lot of like, what the what?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
from the players, from the characters, there definitely was, in terms of like the story. But in terms of the other players, there was a little bit of it, but I thought it would be more of a mind blow moment.
Yeah, I wonder if they must have caught on
Yeah,
somewhere along the way.
yeah, probably all the weird, like your letter and everything. And I think it was still, I don't know, it was, I guess, our 4th game, because we did split the first one in 2 episodes, so it was our 4th game. I don't know. It went well. It just didn't have the wow effect I wanted in terms of the actual players.
I almost worried that it had actually not the opposite effect, because people were excited about it, but there was a small window where some of the other heroes were, like, the players were role playing doubt. They were like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! You have these powers. Like, why didn't you tell us?" Like, it didn't last long, but I was actually worried that, like, me keeping this information for such a long time was gonna have a negative effect on my relationship with these other players. Or these other heroes in the game, the characters rather. So it blew past pretty quickly, but I was really trying to, like, no, I was doing it, like, for your better, like, I wasn't doing it out of, like, meanness towards you. I was doing it for my safety, kind of thing.
I think once you explained that, the fact that I wasn't comfortable, I didn't know you guys, and now I do know you, then I think it went a little bit smoother after that.
Yeah. It was also really fun because it was the first time I got to use my powers basically the whole game.
Did you feel like powerful for the first time?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was basically useless in every combat leading up to this. So to finally be able to, like, hunker down, show off to everybody, like, look, I'm not this useless messenger. I'm actually a wizard who has cool powers that I can use, and that you guys can use. Like, we can kind of feed off of each other, and it creates new tactics in combat. It creates new roleplay opportunities out of combat. I think that was really cool. I really appreciated that.
And something maybe to mention is we actually had a one-on-one game before the reveal. So all the change aesthetically of your character were actually role played before. We decided to switch the episode to make more sense. But next, Blood and Betrayal will be this role play that we did on a one-on-one, and how Diedrich went from an apprentice to a journeyman. So there was also a reason why he now can show off, I'd say, is because he now has the license to.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's important to show that it wasn't like just a split decision. It actually, something happened, a trigger for this moment to make sense in the story.
Yeah, and this also, I think, Chris, was one of my favorite combats. I know I also already mentioned this to you, but I'd love to talk to you about the combat before we get too much into, like, the different steps you took to plan it. I'd like to pick your brain and see, like, did we approach this combat the way you anticipated us approaching it?
Not really, actually. The room, the way I like to set up the space first not thinking about you guys,
Mm-hmm.
and once I was thinking about how you would tackle the thing, I thought you would do a lot more recon. I know Otis is really good at it. Basically, assessing the situation, coming back to telling you guys,
Yeah.
here's what's going on. We should tackle to the left, or maybe sneak in, have Ludolf in the main line, or I don't know what. But more intel. And having Umgrim charge in not even the Skaven, but the rat. In my mind, the first scene would have been some person in front seeing the Ratmen catch all the smaller rats and bring them forward, and you following them, exploring the dungeon, if you may, the sewers, as you were following them. So that's what I had in mind, and this just like
didn't happen.
Didn't happen at all. And Umgrim being caught in the net was not actually a trap I planned. He just jumped into it. So that I really did not expect.
Yeah.
And having all then I had an idea where all the Skaven would be to start with, but once there was the explosion and everything, they would react to what you did, and then that's when they all retreated to secure the main room.
Mm-hmm. I think part of that reason, Chris, is I don't think a lot of us are very good at sneaking. Like, on paper, our characters are not built for this. Otis is.
Otis, yeah. It's
but
his main thing.
Everybody else isn't.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously we had to deal with the fact that they're aware of our presence. So we kind of like bull rushed the whole situation.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I think that was part of the reason it was so much fun.
Yeah, maybe. Exactly. And maybe I didn't say it right, but the reason they knew you were there is really the explosion. The fact that you rushed in at the beginning was not didn't really reveal you guys, because one of the first person had a horn to blow into, because it was the guard, and you went so quickly that didn't have a chance to do it. So that was actually a good thing. And you're right that just rushing through it was fun in this situation. And
not always, I'm sure.
Not always, yeah.
But yeah, rushing in really allowed everything to be happening at the same time. And that's what made this so much fun, because there were so many fires to be extinguished. The books in the sewage floating away. The rat ogre's gonna potentially kill Ungrim. Otis is jumping into the water while Ludolf is protecting him, and Randall is shooting an arrow. Like, it just, everything was all happening all at once. It could have blown up in our face, because we could have all failed individually at the things that we were doing. But that's what made, like, the tension was so high, the possibility of failure was so real, and we pulled it off.
Yeah, and that was not really, I guess it was not really by design. I put a lot of little things, but they were all really close one to the other. So I knew the explosion would affect the next room, the next two rooms maybe.
Yeah.
Right? So that was, the only design I had was all these little events that were all really close. And if you rush in, you trigger multiple, right? So that's just like that. So yeah, thinking about it, maybe it was a good thing. And I was like, as the game master, I'm not really there to judge the way you did it. I just have an idea, and if it's the same, good or bad, I don't know, right? So yeah. Sure. What was your most memorable thing, or the thing you really liked that comes out of this whole encounter, if you have to pick one?
I'm gonna cheat and pick two. I'll make them fast. Obviously, being able to reveal myself as a blue wizard, as Diedrich, was so much fun. Something that was also fun, maybe it's worth saying, the player who normally plays Ungrim wasn't there this time we were playing. So I took on the role of Ungrim. Because Diedrich wasn't present for a good part of the game, I kind of, you gave me the character of Ungrim and said, play him however you want to play him. And I decided to play him as true to the person who would have normally played him. And as true to Ungrim as a character as possible. Likes a challenge, likes to fight for glory, fight for honor, and doesn't think of a situation too much, just kind of charges in. That's who Ungrim as a character is. And I had a lot of fun just like ripping heads off of Ratmen and jumping onto the. I know it was a super risky thing to do, and that maybe it could have ended differently.
I remember you being like, I guess that's what Ungrim should do, but I'm not the player. And we were like, do your thing, do Ungrim.
So I just jumped on the Rat Ogre, and it was a lot of fun. So that was kind of cool to not have to play a character, especially because Diedrich, for every game before that, everything was calculated, because I was trying to see, like, how can I use magic without showing it to the others. It was such a nice change of pace to be like, I'm not going to think about this. I'm just going to run in and slash and be like as berserker and barbaric as possible. It was a nice change of pace, and I really enjoyed it.
Nice.
I guess that kind of sums up part of this. The next thing we're going to talk about here is we're actually going to go through the steps that we mentioned in our most recent roleplay chat, the one about creating combat.
Yeah, so we're going to use this as an example, but just because it's a list, we're not going to go like super deep. Just I'll try to mention, to link it with those 7 steps.
Mm-hmm. And if you guys have questions about how to use these steps, I'd encourage you to check out the video. I'll link it up here, or leave us comments asking your questions. So Chris, I guess the first thing we should talk about when we talk about the steps we use for creating combat is, what are your intentions? Lightning round, what are your intentions in this fight?
My intention was, you found the Skaven lair, so it was to reveal their contribution to the whole story and what was going on.
Awesome. Next thing is objectives. What were the players' objectives?
So in terms of objective, I had multiple ones. I had the book. That was a plot reveal a little bit. No, sorry. It was more of like information. There was the main Skaven assassin, to capture him or kill him or something like that. There was, and that was to exonerate Hans Bomer. There was the equipment, possible lockpick, a shield, a sword, other little things. And finding the back room that they didn't find, but finding the back room was also another objective that would give them possible rewards.
So I guess we talked about the next step pretty quickly. They're kind of interwoven. Were there, the next step being rewards, are there any rewards that you didn't mention that you wanted to mention here? Yeah,
so in the back room, the reward I was going to with it was really a plot reveal showing the relationship between the Skavens and a cult that was called the Crimson Skull that would become more and more influential as the story advanced. In terms of equipment, the rewards is the equipment. The catching the assassin was, like I mentioned, Hans Bomer, but that's a role play reward. That's a help, like Randall resolving the relationship with his father, his background and everything. And in terms of the cost of failure, all of these were optional. The only one that was necessary to like have no I guess a delay would have been finding a way to exonerate Hans Bomer. So catching the bad guy. That's the only thing that, if they didn't do that, they were kind of stuck having to find another way to do it. But with the plot reveals, with the information, with more information, so the story advance is just, that would have been one of their objectives, would have been a bit slower.
The next thing is to start thinking about who we're fighting.
Yeah, so it's kind of clear here. Right away in the intention, the who was clear. So that happens often where you have your intention. It would be linked to a who or a where. So here it was the Skavens. But also, as I was building the Skaven, I wanted to have the diversity. So I had the minions. I had the main Skaven assassin who was really dodging and stealthy and stuff like that, responsible for the death of Father Morton and the guard. And there was the Rat Ogre. I wanted to put a change of pace from this little Skavens. And I tried to make it interesting by putting him in a prison to start with. So that was the who, the faction. And also, I guess the Crimson Skull was not physically there, but it was possible to have an idea that they had some kind of hand in the whole scheme here.
So with the who, the next question we usually ask ourselves is where this is going to happen. Obviously, you clearly already knew this, right? It was in the sewers in the Skaven lair.
But it was
more to say.
The thing that was to say, maybe I had the lair thing, but you had to seek it out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was one way to think about the location. So sometimes the location is when they're gonna go through the forest, it's gonna spring on on them. But this was they need to find this lair. Here's where it is on the map. So from last episode, the one before that, it was the fact that Ludolf took the map and looked at it and found out the lair was in that
Close,
location.
yeah.
So that's not only the map in terms of location, but where it is on in the city map, not just the combat map, if you want. So once I placed that, it was really interesting to see you figure out where it was.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. The next thing is if there was a time stamp on this, like when, how does that factor in? How does time factor in?
Yeah, that was really interesting because I had those 3 deaths, and depending on when you found the lair would have been drastically, well, I don't want to say drastically, but the Skaven, what they had in hand would have been drastically different. So you reach the Skaven after they got rid of the relic, but they still had the book. So if you had taken more time, they would not have had the book anymore.
Yeah.
They would have had the next thing.
Okay.
So it was the information reveal would have changed depending on the timeline. And also when I think of when, I also thought of when do I do your reveal? And I thought this was a good opportunity to do a reveal where you could show up as reinforcement to bring the tension forward in the combat.
Perfect. And then the last step that we think about is how might the players address the problems in this combat. I guess we talked about that already, mentioning how we didn't really go at it the way you expected us to. Do you want to quickly touch on some of the things you thought were going to happen?
Yeah, so I mentioned the beginning of how you tackle a thing, but there was also multiple other space. So the gas, I made someone roll a wilderness check to figure out if they knew what it was. So either they would know, or maybe there was flammable, like something, an explosion. I didn't know the effect of the explosion, but that was a possibility. The book in the sewers I planned because I thought it was kind of cool. The guy saying like "you're not," that was planned. That was those cool moments I tried to think of. This scene I had in my head like way before that happened. The guard, there was a guard in the entrance with a horn, possibly alarming everyone, but you disposed of him really quickly. And on the left side, there was a corridor which you didn't go, which was full of poisonous gas. So yeah, it was a trap, but the reason is I wanted to have different angles to tackle the problem. You chose the center and right one, but there was also a left one. But in all of them, there were traps and rewards and possible information to get. So thinking of the how made me think of how can I make those 3 corridor interesting. Those 3 those 3 ways, if you want.
Awesome. So I'm glad we got to do this, Chris, where we got to go through the steps that we mentioned in our roleplay chat video. As we said, check it out if you want more details about how you can implement something like this in your games to make your combats fun. That was a really cool conversation, Chris. I'm really glad we got to kind of link together the steps that we created for our previous roleplay chat episode.
If you have any comments or ideas for us of what you want more details, feel free to write to us by email at contactroleplaychat@gmail.com.
You can also reach us via Twitter. Our Twitter handle is at roll_play_chat. We're almost to 100 followers, so if you use Twitter, I encourage you to go out there and give us a follow. We tweet about all kinds of fun stuff. And I think that covers all of our bases for today, Chris.
That's all, Matt.
Let's call it a chat.